Hey guys, Chief Fruity here, and this is behind the scenes for Violence. This is track 5 from Wreckage, which was released a month or so ago, back in June. And without any further ado, I'm going to go into the BTS. So going right into the project here for Violence, I used a total of 29 audio tracks in this track, and it is 140 BPM. So that's a pretty standard tempo for dubstep, so that's why I used it. And going right in, kind of the first thing it starts off with is there's a hit I put on the very first measure, the very first one. So I use this kick. This is the main kick of the track, and I put this onto track 3, where I have a reverb going through it. So it's just a little bit of reverb, about like 30% or so, and it still is getting quite a bit of reverb. So that does sound like a lot, but when it gets put into the mix, the reverb actually doesn't seem like it's on the kick, and it just seems more like a filler sense. So that's what I wanted to get there. So that's why I tend to put reverb on the kicks quite a bit. It kind of makes the kick to fill up the spectrum a little bit more instead of just being flat. And I have a crash here as well. And I routed this crash to track 8, where I didn't really do anything, I just mapped it. I like having everything mapped on the mixer, like I've said before. And then I have a bass line playing. So this is kind of where things will get a little different. So this is the synth of the bass line. So that is kind of an odd bass line. So as you can see, I turn the pitch all the way down, and I put the prism all the way up to plus 100%. So with the prism decreasing, it just sounds kind of flat. And I have it mapped to a saw wave here, and I have 9 voices of unison on this bass, and I turn the pluck down a little bit, so it's not like so it's more of like almost kind of like a stand-up bass, but a little more metallic, because I put the prism on it. And that is what is going on in there. So see the envelope, I must have done something in the envelope. No, I didn't. Okay, so nothing in the envelopes, just doing that. So in the frequency, I was trying to do something. That was this. But it sounded kind of bad when you just cut it off like this. So I took that out. As well as I turned the pitch all the way down here, and I turned it all the way down up here also to get it really low. And I put this onto track 9, where I ran it through a patcher. And on this patcher, I have it going through a Vocodex. So with this Vocodex, I have the wetness on 100%. I wanted to get it pretty wet. By default, it's at 50. But with the wetness all the way up, it kind of increased the sub. And that's what I wanted to get on it. And I have some SG on 100%. Turned off the draft. I didn't mess with any of these bands of distribution. Or, no, not bands of distribution. This is the bands of distribution. I didn't mess with any of the band value modifiers. But I did put on the reel a little bit more. That kind of added some reverb. This as compared to this. So it kind of made the reverb pop out a little bit more. And I have an EQ going through here. I lowered some mids because it just sounds really weird like that. So when the mids are lowered a little bit, it sounds a little bit better. And then I have another EQ going through here where I took out lows. So that might seem kind of odd to you, but I didn't want it to be too subby. Like, it still has some, but it's not overwhelming, because with this, down here, it was getting pretty intense. So I took out some lows there. And this is what I have it playing. It's kind of just some bass going through the track. And then I have noise going in also. The noise is kind of fading it in, doing this. It's just a standard white noise. I made this through GMS. Just turned up the noise all the way, and then the cutoff. So I just automated the cutoff, and I put this on track 12 just to map it. So that's what I did with the noise there. And then these are the chords, which is actually like the main lead for this song. So like I didn't put the chords as underneath the lead. I made the chords the lead, if that makes sense. So this is what the chords are playing. And these are, let me put this to unsorted right here. So this is the chords inside Harmor. So I turned down the pitch about halfway, not to get it too low, but still enough to keep it in the same note that it's in. And then I put the harmonizer up to 100%, because for this chord, I really like chords I used to just be like really in harmony. So I put up the amount, as well as I put up the unison up to 9 and the vibrato up a little bit to give it some variation there with the pitch. As well as I turned it up a little bit because it was a little quiet. And I put this onto track 18, where I'm just running a reverb. For some reason I put it in a patcher. I don't know why, but reverb in a patcher. And then there's an Edison here. I was probably maybe recording something and I didn't get rid of the Edison, so that's what I did there. And then I have the second sound kind of lead thing right here. So this is what was playing that kind of second sound underneath it, just to kind of add on a little bit more. This literally is the same settings, just the pitch isn't down here, it's up here, up at 0, and everything else is the same though. It's the exact clone of the sound. 9 voices, unison, harmonizer, vibrato. Just I turn up the pitch a little bit. And on 19, I put on reverb, the same reverb. I put on an EQ, removing some lows, because this, I didn't want this to be the main sound, so I didn't want to have in the low end. I wanted to take out the low end, so it didn't feel as much as a main. If this was up here, it would feel a little bit more main, just a little bit. So I wanted to take out some lows, and I added in a chorus to this one, where I expanded the depth all the way to 100%, just to kind of add in some of that to get a little unique. And then these are the harmonizing and harmonizer width, and filter. These are automating it for this pad. So if I just play these 4 like this. So I just have those playing to fade it in. Then these harmonizer widths are for these chords. So they start out at full. So that's basically it for this little intro here. It does start out pretty loud compared to most of the other tracks. So now to get into the verse. So now right here for the verse, I actually put it onto a full drum loop now. So the snare, I put it on to track 4. I just put on some reverb to get that snare really loud and to taking up some space. So that's for the snare. I already showed you the kick, and then for the hi-hats, it's just kind of a standard hi-hat sample. There's nothing too special with it. I turned it up a little bit, as you can see, because down here it was just a little too quiet. Up here it was just about right. Just you can hear them enough, but not too much because they're hi-hats. So, and then I did some velocity stuff. this is different from what I normally do. Normally I do like something like this, but for this one I wanted to try doing putting an accent on the very last one after every 3. Just kind of some random ones. I did have kind of an overall pattern of every 3 putting one up, but I didn't do that on all of them. The reason I did that was because I kind of want it to be a little more real kind of sounding, a little random almost. And then I have some crashes playing in on the one here, and everything is kind of built up, just like the intro, just everything's all faded in already. And then I bring it down right here with noise coming out. The noise brings it down, and everything else is staying the same. The chords do switch to playing a different pattern. I'll show you this. So this is the new pattern. The chords are playing for this kind of little breakdown before the build-up. And it just keeps playing that until it reaches the second one, where it's playing triplets now. So then it repeats that again, and then I have the noise fading in, as well as kicks building up and the bass, and looks like that's all I got going for here. But to show you this bass, well, that got a little crazy because it's on a loop, so it played through itself. But if I just play it here, so I actually used this bass sample for a lot of tracks in Wreckage. I did this for Violence, Pure Glory, Epicosity. I think I used it in Wreckage also. There might be some other ones I use this in. So anyway, I use this bass sample a lot. I really like this one. So I put this through track 13 through a patcher. I'm going to show you the patcher first and then the citrus. So for the effects module, I put it on distortion all the way. So that's kind of why I got that crazy sound. And then Vocodex, I have it going through here with a reel for some little reverb, wetness, and SG. The bands, I boosted the bands a little bit. Let me bring it down here. Just sound a little more full right here, but not too full. Like this was a little too much, so I thought right here was good. Right there was pretty good. So that's what I have going there. Now for the citrus itself. So this one, I actually made this bass as a preset just because I wanted to just make a bass, but I didn't feel like making it inside of a song. So I just made a preset on a separate project, and then I actually imported this onto this track because I thought it would be cool to use it. So the first thing I have here is the first 4 are all triangle waves, and the last 2 are rectangle waves. So that is what I'm doing with the wave format. And then for operator 1, mode X on modifier, I have this set to 100 to 0 for the mode X. For the mode X right there. And then the first 2 are on 2 for the frequency, and then 32 to 32 to 64 and 64 the rectangle waves. And I have it on decreasing value in the matrix, and the rectangle waves are really what makes it have this effect right there. So this is one of my favorite FM synths I've done, and that's why I used it so many times in Wreckage. And I already showed you the mixer track. So that's what's going on inside of here. It's pretty basic, but still it delivers a pretty unique sound. And this is it playing here on the rise. Just kind of alternating some stuff there to build it up. And then I have a tom fill right here. And these toms, it's actually the same tom each time. I just put in a piano roll and decrease the pitch. And it sounds like a pretty legit fill. So I put this onto an EQ. Let me put up the octave. Put it onto an EQ where I boosted the mids a little bit because that's where it starts, and it goes down to about 2. And then I put on some reverb also to make it last a little longer, other than this, because I thought this sounded kind of bad. So the reverb, it sounds a lot better in the mix. And then I had some vocals going here. So this is the pattern. So you probably couldn't really hear that very well in the mix, but yes, I do have vocals. And yes, I did just record my voice for this song, just violent. And I have the unison all the way up, and the harmonizer all the way up. I turned up the volume a little bit, because to get it heard. And then the prism is slightly engaged. And I put this on a track 17 where I put on a Vocodex, just as you can see, full bands, full SG, full wet, and an EQ. So not doing much in the EQ, just lowering some highs and boosting some of these highs. Kind of like highs between the mids, between the highs. So that's what I have here. And I just put a little stutter in the beginning. And it plays out right before the drop, and then I have a snare hit to get into the drop, and all these reversed cymbals. So, no, not that. This for all the cymbals. To get it into the drop. Then I have the bass, the chords, and that's really all that there is before the drop. And then now for inside the drop. So it's just kind of playing that same loop with some variations to the drop. Then I have this second bass right here, and I'll show you the preset in a little bit. So it's just alternating each time, and with this synth was in Harmor. And that was the preset. So it's just the prism is mapping this. So this is actually one of the very similar to the preset I used in Troll's Walk for that little growl at the very end of each measure inside of the drop. It does have the same prism drop thing. So the first thing I did is I turned up the prism all the way, because for this prism drop you need some prism. And then I put up the harmonizer amount all the way and the pitch all the way down. And Mode X is controlling the filter. So now I'll show you with all this envelope stuff. So filter 1 frequency. Filter 1 frequency is mapped to Mode X mapping. So with it being on Mode X mapping, that is just allowing it to do this. And then on the prism amount, I have this on an envelope, just on a loop to do this. To bring it down from 100% to 0% really fast. Then when it goes from 100% to 0% really fast, it makes this effect. So that is what I have going on inside of Harmor. On to track 15, where I put it through this. So this might seem like a lot to you, but really it's just Vocodex, EQs, and compression. So first I'm going to show you this first Vocodex. In this first Vocodex, I put up the wetness and the SG, like I kind of normally would, to kind of really bring out a bass. I put up some bands, not too much, just about like right here. And then this is the band type. Basically, like these are the band values. This is like the type of band. I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but that's basically what it does. So I put it up here to get a little sharper, and I put it up to 2 for the harmonies. And that's all I did inside of this first Vocodex. And now for this second Vocodex, I did everything very similar. The wetness, SG are all the way up. This time I put up the bands all the way, the band type all the way, and then the harmony is to 2. And I put it to 86, 87 bands of distribution, and this is the band gain multiplier. I put this onto like a triangle here, and that's the, now I remember, that's what this is called. This is the band gain multiplier. This is the band gain, this is the band gain multiplier. This is the band value, this is the band gain multiplier. And then for the first one, 47 band, and I did do this triangle thing again on the band gain multiplier. And then for this Vocodex, I put it up to 100 bands of distribution, and I didn't turn the wetness up all the way, just halfway with the SG up to full. And because, like, with this being full, it still is pretty decent. Like, that's still a good bass. The only difference it really does is it just adds a little bit of sub. And I didn't want too much sub on this one, so I just left that there. But I still tuned up the SG. This time the band's up all the way, the band gain multipliers all the way, and I have the 100 bands distribution on with the band gain multiplier on the triangle. So that's what I have going on there. And those are all three Vocodexes running through. Now for the 5 EQs. This first EQ is just boosting a little bit of highs. So that's not too complicated. For the second EQ, I took out all the highs and just added in some low there. For this third EQ, I took out some highs. For the third one, I took out lows. And then for this final one, I took out more lows. So taking out lows and taking out highs here. So a bunch of different EQs doing a lot of stuff to get this effect. And then I have the Maximus running compression. And I boosted, the master's the same, but I boosted the highs a lot. So it would compress the highs a little bit more. The mids also, and the lows I didn't touch as much. I wanted to kind of highlight more in the mids and highs in the compressor. So that's what I did on here. So it compressed a little bit because it was getting a little loud. And this was all on track 15, and I turned it down a little bit because the compressor doesn't do everything. Sometimes it just gets it into a range and then you do the volume. So that's what I did there. And that's for this bass. And this is the band width envelope, and this is an EQ frequency envelope. So this would be modulating the EQ on 5, and this would be modulating the bands. So if I play this on a loop, and then I can show you in here, it's doing that, and it's doing this. And in the piano roll, it's just a pitch drop. So that's what I have going for that bass and violence. And then I do have chords in the drop, just a section of chords from the previous chords I showed you before. So nothing too special there. I have a drums going. That's the first drum beat, and I have the second one here, where I bring out more of the kick for that one. And then for 10 here, I did that. And then for the final one, I did this. And that's going on a loop for the whole drop, not including drop E. And then the chords are staying the same. For the second section, I do have noise exiting. The first one I have it coming in, but not exiting, and then coming in, and then now I have it exiting to go to the drop B. So in the drop B, I kind of bring things down a little bit. I take out the hi-hats and the drums. I just have it repeating this beat for 3 bars, and then this beat for the final bar. So that's what I have for the drums, and it repeats this for the first 2 bars, and for the final 2 it goes back to before. Wait, no it doesn't. It just does this with hi-hats now. So for the bass here, this main one, it does this. And then after that, I got it playing. I'll just play all the basses doing this. So for this first one, I just put it together of this part and this part looped. I'm playing it twice, I mean. And then for this second bass, I have the same pitch drop that's been used many times, though I take out some bands entirely, and I do some different stuff with the EQ. And then back to this, this first leading sample. Let's bring up the pitch, and then for this one, I have the bands increasing and the EQ going up and then down. And that's what gives it this effect. Because the EQ right now would be boosting highs and then it boosts lows. So boosting lows to boosting highs to boosting lows again. So that's kind of what gives it that almost pitch effect. And then it loops that until it gets to the well, the chords are the exact same. Playing through, it goes to this chord, to this chord, to that chord. So it's just playing those chords all together in a loop. And then it gets to the second section of drop B, where I played this second one, the second automation of the triangle from this part, where I used it here in the first drop, so I bring it back and use it in the second section of drop B, and then I also engage the hi-hats. And then everything else is the same from there, except for the little exit I do here I do this. So for this sample, this sample is used once in the entire song, so it's just pitch increasing with these two automations. And that is going exactly from C1 to F1. And then I have the tom fill and some noise coming in. And then it goes right into the verse. Like, I don't have any breaks. It just goes right into the verse. So this is the drum loop for the verse. And I have two crashes on the one here to get a little bit louder because there's all this stuff going on. So I turned basically instead of just turning it up, I just played two, and that would make it louder. And then I have noise coming down. The bass is the same I showed you before from the intro over here. Now the verse. The chords, I actually played two chords at once. So one is playing in just the left speaker, and one is playing in just the right speaker. So this is the one that's playing in just the left. And then just playing the same exact thing, but just in the right speaker. And the reason I did this, it kind of opens it up more, kind of playing it like surrounding you instead of in between. So if it's surrounding you, and then I have this synth playing in the center. So it's not like it's all being in battle with each other. It's kind of surrounding, and then one being in the center. If that can make sense. So that's what I did there. And then I have this bass line. I really like this bass line. I think this is one of the best bass lines I've done in Wreckage. So this is the pattern it's playing right here. And then automation, this is the band values increasing each time it hits the note, and that's kind of what gives it the fade in effect. So because I increased the bands, it kind of makes it fade in each hit. And then I have the EQ kind of just going along with the bands, kind of doing the same thing to kind of follow along, but not exactly, to make it a little unique. So that's the bass line I have going. And then I put in a tom fill right here and here to exit from the first two bars, and then exit into the rise. The drum beat does not change, but the chords do. For the second section, these are the chords for the second section. So that's the chords for the second section, then I have noise coming out, and then toms, second rise. Basically, I start the chords right on the very beginning, because the second rise is longer than the, no, it's the same length, but I bring the kick in sooner than the other rise. So I have the noise coming down and rising up, just like before. The chords are the same, but for the first measure is the same as the previous rise down here, where there's nothing happening. It's just kind of the music is coming in. But then I brought in the kicks on the second measure, which on the other rise I didn't come into the third one. So I did that, as well as I brought in the bass coming in. And then on the third measure here, instead of just doing the kicks, I did this. And yes, hi-hats are playing during this. And then every once in a while, it would do this. Just to kind of make it a little interesting. And I have that doing for the rest of the rise. And then I bring in this synth. Well, actually, it's not a synth. This was actually a tom. It was actually this tom played up here. And I put this on a track 21 where I boosted the mids with an EQ and I added a reverb. So it's just a tom at high pitch with boosted mids and reverb. And you could also do this with a snare. It sounds really good with the snare when you bring it to really high pitch. But I wanted to use a tom for this one. I thought that sounded pretty good and it fit the song. So I just would rise it up, and then I bring it to the vocal. And this is all kind of the same as the last one, but the drums, and for the last two measures of the drums, I play this. And then it goes into the second drop, which is this. So the same growls, all the bass is the same, but I have the sample, which I already showed you how I made that. So basically I just did double time on the kick, and on the very beginning I did put these chords. So those are the chords that are playing throughout this drop, including the drop B for the second one. And then I have that, and then also the snare comes up. I do bring in a progression with the clap. I didn't use a snare here, because a snare would take up too much space, like this. Now, I could have used a really light snare, but I like the effect of having a clap in there. It also brings some more variation when I have the snare down here. And then also, another thing I forgot to show you that also is playing here is on the very beginning, it's the single growl. And then for the second one, there's two. So it goes from this to this. Just to add in some more variation there. And then when it exits the first drop to drop beats is this, where I do, and I cut all the noise for the last two kicks. So this is what would be happening. So the reason I didn't cut it for all four kicks is because if I just cut it like right here, this could still work. But I think that's just a little too much time in between there. I like it with just cutting the last two kicks. It kind of just, to me, it seems like it fades in better to drop B. But if you're using an effect, you can just cut as many as you want. Like, you can have the whole thing playing kicks. That would be interesting. I don't know if that would work as well, but you can test that out on your own. So for the drop B, I just halftime. I bring it to halftime, playing the drums I did in the previous drop. So that's what I have on the drums. The trap is playing the same. Well, it's not really trap, but it's just like this lead. I called it trap just because I thought it kind of sounded like trap a little bit. And then for drop B, I put in this bass as well, as you can tell. And these green growls every once in a while for the progression for the second part. And then the chords are playing. I was just doing this. And then for the second part, I'm just adding these growls until it goes to verse 2, where it plays actually the same thing as the last verse here with these chords. So the same chord pattern, though for the second section, the drum beat is different. So I added in the snares with a beat for 2 in between each instead of 1. When there's only 1, that's too fast. So I put in a beat, 2 beats in between. And I really like that effect. It really, like, at the end of the song, kind of like a finale. And then it exits. Where I bring down the harmonies there. So this was the project for Violence. That's just about everything I've done inside of Violence. I hope you guys enjoyed, and stay tuned for next week's video, which will probably be the behind the scenes of Immortal Grace. So I'll see you guys then. Bye.